Welcome to MindSpark, Science Now. I'm your host. And today we're stepping into a room you'll never visit, yet its quiet thrum may reshape the way future generations live and work. Picture a cavernous hall in Taiwan lit by cool white LEDs. Row after row of black cabinets stand shoulder to shoulder like library stacks. Except these shelves breathe, faint hiss of liquid coolant threads between them, carrying away the heat of 10,000 Blackwell GPUs firing in unison. Each cabinet is a GB300 NVL72 rack. 72 GPUs tied together by NVLink, sharing 40 terabytes of coherent memory. One rack delivers over an acaflop of 4-bit inference compute. Multiply that by dozens of racks, and you have the newest node in NVIDIA's global AI factory network. It's easy to drown in numbers, so let's anchor this. If you compressed the computing milestones of the last decade onto a single timeline, this launch makes the previous spikes look like molehills. Last year's top system trained multimodal language models, text, images, maybe some video. The Blackwell cluster was built for bodies. Not avatars, not typed prompts, but real-world robots that stand roughly our height, balance on two legs, and manipulate objects we designed for human hands. The brain gym. Training a humanoid is a 3-stage relay. The baton starts here, inside the supercomputer. Engineers call it Phase 1, the brain gym. Massive reinforcement. Learning runs crunch billions of simulated steps. Falls, recoveries, grasps, scenarios too risky or repetitive for hardware. Next comes Phase 2, the dream machine. NVIDIA's Isaac Sim generates photoreal factory floors, cluttered kitchens, disaster zones, whatever curriculum the robot needs. Each virtual moment bolts extra rungs onto its ladder of experience. The supercomputer renders those worlds in parallel, feeding mistakes back into the learning loop. Finally, Phase 3, the body fitting. When the model stabilizes, it ships to a Jetson Thor modulon on robot computer roughly the size of a candy bar, but wired with dedicated AI fabric. Thor runs the policy in real time, closing the gap between megawatt data center and battery-powered biped. The first public milestone of this pipeline is GR00T N1.5. An update that went from concept to deployable weights in 36 hours unthinkable a year ago. Early demos show the robot gliding over uneven terrain, stacking crates, even improvising dance-like recovery moves when shoved. But those flourishes aren't hand-coded. They emerged because the training loop could simulate enough edge cases to let agility blossom. Why Taiwan? Why now? You might ask, why cite such a power-hungry beast on an island wrestling with grid constraints? 3 reasons. First, proximity. The racks are built by Foxconn, whose assembly lines sprawl across Taiwan, and by placing compute next to manufacturing. NVIDIA shortens the feedback loop. Robots built on one floor can be stress-tested in bits and bytes upstairs the same night. Second, logistics. The Pacific is a long sail from every major mainland market. Deploying humanoids on local lines helps Foxconn counter rising wages and logistical shocks, while showcasing its own automation portfolio. Third, geopolitics. Export controls limit where cutting-edge AI hardware can land. Taiwan sits inside an alliance web that allows bleeding-edge silicon to flow with fewer red flags than, say, mainland China. Of course, 100 megawatts is not a rounding error. The facility's engineers tout liquid cooling for bit math and power-aware job schedulers. But grid planners still grimace. An executive compared the site to adding a small aluminum smelter to Taiwan's load profile. Yet for some policymakers, the calculus is clear. Invest in compute and robotics or watch factories migrate abroad. The humanoid's first job. Let's follow the pipeline to Houston, Texas. Foxconn's new server plant is slated to host the first wave of GR00T-powered bots. There's poetic symmetry here. Robots assembling the very machines that trained their intelligence. Picture a workstation. Human technicians thread fiber cables into motherboards while 2 bays over, a humanoid lowers a heavy GPU tray with unnerving steadiness. Early trials assign each robot a mentor-style pairing. 1 human, 1 machine. The robot handles the ergonomically brutal lifts and repetitive screw patterns. The human focuses on QC and anomalies. Plant managers report a 15% uptick in throughput, with no rise in injuries. But metrics only hint at the deeper shift. Every motion the robot makes is fed back into simulation. Misalign a cable. The mistake spawns 1,000 synthetic cousins overnight, and by morning, firmware updates smooth the motion, from factory floor to living room. Now, glance forward 5 years. The same training pipeline scales beyond factory niches. Home helpers. Imagine a rental bot that installs a child's car seat perfectly every time, or folds laundry in hotel-grade stacks. Disaster response. With ruggedized joints and vision models fused to thermal cameras, a GR00T descended platform wades into floodwater to shut off gas mains. Elder care. Aging societies may supplement stretched nursing teams with tireless attendants that can lift patients safely and log vitals on the fly. Skeptics note that we've heard these promises before. True. The difference now is iteration speed. When design test cycles collapse from months to hours, breakthroughs stop trickling, they cascade. The trade-off ledger. Every technological wave writes a hidden ledger of costs and benefits. Let's read both columns. Energy. A single GB300 rack draws roughly the same power as 50 US homes. Scale to campus level, and you shadow a small town. Advocates counter that deploying a humanoid to relieve a 24-hour human shift can offset lifetime energy by reducing commuting, lighting, and HVAC in legacy facilities. The math is disputed and deserves transparent audits. Labor. Foxconn insists its Houston pilot upskills workers. People move from torquing wrenches to supervising fleets. But the substitution line will creep. Tasks, not jobs, vanish first, and history shows that social cushions lag behind technical change. Security. Humanoids trained on a cloud-linked backbone inherit the attack surface of the internet. Break the update chain, and you could turn a service robot into a safety hazard. This pushes robotics firms into cyber-physical fuse boxes. Fail-safe joints, local overrides, motion floor geofences. The big what if. Here's the cliffhanger I can't shake. When language models surged, they sparked a renaissance in software creativity. Code, snippets, storylines, art prompts. Humanoid AI aims to do the same for physical creativity. The Blackwell cluster doesn't just chase a higher robotics benchmark. It seeds a marketplace where locomotion routines, grasp libraries, and tactile tricks trade like GitHub repos. If you're a small startup prototyping kitchen assistants, you won't spin up 10,000 GPUs. You'll license a slice of NVIDIA's Brain Gym, fine-tune a policy, then download builds onto off-the-shelf limbs. Hardware standardization meets cloud-based skill sharing. The toddler years of robotics, where each lab soldered custom rigs, could give way to an iOS Android moment for bodies. Before we sign off, let me leave you with a homework thought experiment. List one task in your daily routine that you'd gladly outsource to a bipedal machine, and one task you'd guard jealously as a cornerstone of being human. Now imagine the boundary blurring not next century, but before today's elementary students graduate college. The hum we began with isn't just cooling fluid. It's the sound of possibility and uncertainty intertwined. NVIDIA's new supercomputer is teaching silicon souls to walk, but the syllabus for coexistence is ours to write. I'm your host, and this has been MindSpark. Science Now. If you enjoyed the journey, subscribe, leave a review, and send me a note. Which chore would you hand off to a silicon soul, and why? Until next time, stay curious.